JC Newman Cigar Studio in Boston, Massachusetts, and the Gurkha Cigar Studio in beautiful British Columbia. Welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show with your hosts, Matt Tobacco and Mitchell Santaga.
And good evening and welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. My name is Matt Tobacco from SmokinTabacco.com, and I'm joined once again by my very good friend, Mr. Mitchell Santaga, also of SmokinTabacco.com. I am live here in the JC Newman Cigar Studios, and Mitchell is up in the beautiful British Columbia, in the great northern country of Canada. And he is also in the Gurkha Cigar Studios. Mitchell, how are you? And apparently Mitchell is not ready to start the show. Seems to be hanging out on his phone. No idea that we're actually doing this right now. For some reason, he probably can't hear me. It's all right. We'll wait. Maybe I'll shoot him a text. See if he can check his phone. He texted me. What's this all about? I don't know. I am frozen. Oh, never mind. I thought he was just not paying attention. Well, apparently we lost him. So anyway, instead of bantering with him, I'm going to go right into it. And, oh, here he is. Hold on one second. And now I appear to be frozen. Hold on. Let's see if we can figure this out. There he is.
Hey.
So here's the thing. I thought I could still hear background noise, which I forgot. Like, Nate's also, like, in the green room right now. So I hear that. And
Yep.
I didn't quite realize you were frozen. So for a second there, I thought you were just, like, I don't give a fuck. I'm on my phone.
I was just messing with you. I was just ignoring you. Didn't even want to start the show.
I don't know why. For a second, it didn't register to me, and I'm like, he just, he's still on his phone. We'll see if he's ready. And then I'm like, oh, he texted me, and then I'm frozen. I'm like, oh, all right, yeah, that makes more sense.
But yes,
that's
beautiful British Columbia and the Gurkha Cigar Studios here.
Yes. I'll let you have your.
Unfortunately, today, not the most beautiful day, but at least it isn't raining.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I mean, it's warm here. It's not hot, but it's not cold. It's decent. I think it's like, I don't know, high 60s today. It's not bad. You got the door open now.
Yeah.
It's nice. And
Yep.
We have a great guest with us here tonight. We have a cigar guest, not just a cigar guest. Not a cigar manufacturer. This is technically, it's an accessories episode. Now, the funny thing is, before we bring him on, I'm really excited. We've been wanting to have this company on the show for a while, but a little bit of research and some conversations I've had with some of the other media guys in the business, and one of the things that I learned from some of our competitors / peers. Is just how much people really enjoy accessory coverage over just the regular cigar coverage. And I thought that was really interesting. And so this year I've made it a point to try to do more with accessories. And we're obviously going to focus more on it, from a news standpoint, from the trade show coverage. And apparently that's what people really want to see. So I'm really excited about this show because it's a little bit different. And I think a lot of people may recognize this guest if you're really into cigars and you've been around long enough.
And the thing with accessories is, like, I feel like the debate is even more divisive than in cigars itself, because cigars, like, people, I like full body, I like this, but it's like, there's like diehard fans. I'm the V-cut crew, and then it's like, I am Punch Man. It's like, yeah, I do this with my cigar, and that's who I am. And accessories really define people. It's a really interesting phenomenon in the industry, and even just the way you light it, right? Do you have a single flame? Are you a double flame? Are you triple, quad flame? Are you a fan flame lighter? Are you a soft flame lighter sometimes? What again, these kind of things, divisive, and I occasionally even just bite the tip of my cigar or rip my cap off, and I try not to post pictures of those because people will just flame you if you don't have a nice
I know.
a nice cut cap. But you talk to about 90% of the manufacturers out there, and when they're rolling and they're testing blends, that's all they're doing is lighting with a Bic and cutting the cap of their things with their fingernails. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So when I'm too lazy to whip out a cutter or
Well, you know what's interesting? So I spent a lot of time, with John Carney from LFD, who's many people know is a very, very close friend of mine. And I am smoking LFD tonight too. So, no surprise there. But anyway, I spent a lot of time with him, and especially traveling and whatnot. And I'll tell you, man, like you would think guy like that, executive of a big brand, hey, he's got all the nicest shit. No, he doesn't. He has an unlimited stockpile of LFD DG flick, lighters that probably cost like a couple of dollars, and he doesn't really own a cutter from what I have seen in our travels. He's a biter. He just bites the cap off, uses his DG blighter, and that's it. He's done. That's all. And it's funny because if you're right, there's a lot of people out there I know who, if they knew that, would be like, "Whoa, what do you mean? Like those are your?" He'd be like, "Yes, I have one accessory. I have a cheap lighter and my teeth. That's it. That's what I have." And people would be like all over him, but. That's the reality. Those guys aren't necessarily rolling in the fancy. It's just that's.
I know, it's so funny. And then, like I said, you post like a slightly off-angled, slightly mangled cut on the internet, and you got like 17 people posting, be like, "You ruined the cigar! How dare you sacrifice such a glory!"
I know.
Or you see people like, "How could you light a cigar with a Bic?" And I'm like, "Dude, it's got the same fuel everyone else. Like, they use butane, man. Like."
I know. Well, anyway, let's get our guest on the show, and he can join in on this fun with us. Guys, without further ado, please welcome Nate Beck from Boveda onto the Smokin Tabacco Show. Nate, welcome.
Great to see everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Great to see you. For a second, I don't know why, I saw a photo of you on social media, and I almost said, "Oh, is that Kurt Kendall?" Because you got that big beard going on like Kurt's got. And I almost confused you guys for a second, and I have to say it is magnificent. You wear it well.
Thanks, man. It's my Santa beard.
Yeah. I mean, it's white, so I mean that makes sense.
Right. This is what 5 daughters, all over the age of 16, will do for your face. So.
Yeah, I'll know what that's like soon enough. But
man, I was enjoying your conversation about accessories and cigar cutters and what have you, and I don't think, for the most part, at PCA or TPE, nearly every cigar maker that I see smoke a cigar, usually it's 2 bites. One bite, a quarter turn, another bite. Pick a few bits off, and in you go. And Bic lighter, yep, that's preferred.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's the hilarious part about, it's kind of this funny part of the industry, because most manufacturers aren't posting on the internet, there's a few here and there that are, but most are, they're doing their job, and they don't have time to be on social media. Whereas consumers, that's part of the fun is, hey, look at what I'm smoking. Hey, what are you guys smoking? Hey, look at what I'm lighting and cutting with. And yeah, we get so enthralled in it. And then the people who are making these things smoking double, triple the amount we are, just biting it off and lighting it with a Bic. It's great.
Absolutely.
So
I used to say this I've said this for a number of years. The correlation, I used to own an artisan hot dog cart before I came to Boveda. I did that for 10 years. And I did tons of events in the craft beer world. And if you watch or ever see a head brewer when they're not drinking their own beer, there's a pretty good chance that when they're just crushing beers at a party, they're drinking Miller High Life, Coors Banquet, Labatt Blue, whatever your macro good old fashioned beer of choice is, they're going to probably be crushing that because they're consistently made. They're delicious. They just taste like beer. And they get, people get crapped on all the time for drinking that stuff. And they're like, if you only knew.
Exactly. Hey, but you know what? Nothing wrong with having your nicest cutter, your beautiful lighter as well.
Oh yeah.
There is a bit of this ritualistic part of that as well, like having your own thing and enjoying that as well. But like I said, it's just funny when you get totally shit on the.
I think Mitchell.
Yeah,
froze
totally.
Again. I think Mitchell froze again. I don't know what's going on with him, but he hasn't had a good connection. Well, while he drops out, why don't we let's talk about what we're smoking tonight, right? Our cigars are once again brought to you by 2guyscigars.com. That's right. That's the number 2guyscigars.com. Head over there today for an amazing selection of cigars and accessories from the industry, one that you'll never forget. Check them out today at the number 2guyscigars.com. Nate, you're the guest. I'll let you go first. What are you smoking with us tonight?
Tonight, I am smoking a Don Carlos 2017 Anniversario.
Whew. Wow. Good for you. It's a good cigar.
I figured I would treat myself since I was going to be on this fun podcast. And I figured I'd treat myself since I had it. And I saw that my good pal, Dallas Edmiston, who is OG Fuente, I'll call him royalty. He's got tons of friends in the industry, been involved with Fuente for a long, long time. He'll be real proud of me for smoking this one here on the podcast. So,
yeah, Dallas is awesome. There you
go.
He was with us for our fundraiser. He came on for our final episode with Carlito and Cynthia. He had a raffle prize in the raffle as well, and he's a great guy, and just a real good representative of some of the people who have been involved with CFCF over the years. So I know he's watching tonight, so I want to thank him and everyone for being here tonight. But welcome back to the show, Dallas, from the comments. It's good to have you here. I am smoking an LFD 2021 TAA Oro, the chisel from last year. This year it's the Solomon's, available in natural and Maduro. I'm smoking the natural. I don't think there's any of these left, but the 2022 Solomon version may be still in stock at 2guyscigars.com. You'll have to head over there and check it out. But either way, the blend is amazing. I know that the Solomons for this year are the last of this blend, and for 23 they're going to go with something completely different for their TAA release. So go and grab them while you still can. Mitchell, what are you smoking tonight?
Tonight, I decided to cut and light up a Gurkha Pure Evil.
Oh, how appropriate. Very appropriate. Yeah.
A nice, nice medium body blend. Smoking well. Holding the decent ash so far. And, thought it'd be a nice way to start the day off.
What was I going to say? Yeah, Mike is with us, and he said Canadian government cut his internet for saying shit. That may be true. I don't know.
For a first world country, we have really, really bad and expensive internet. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. It seems like the guys down in the Dominican Republic have better connection than you do sometimes.
Yeah. Is that true? Is it countrywide across all of Canada? The internet is real sketchy?
The problem is that because the country is so big, yet our population is so relatively small, infrastructurally, it's hard to get high speed internet everywhere. So in dense populous areas, they can get things like fiber or super high speed stuff. But in like general suburbia, unless you're paying multiple $100s a month, you just have really subpar speeds. And there's only 2 or 3. I think it's actually now 2 because one of them actually purchased the other company. 2 providers of internet in our entire country. Everything else technically is a sub-provider of that internet, but there's only 2 companies in the entire country that provide infrastructure for internet.
Crazy.
That is crazy. That is really crazy.
It is, yeah. It might be 3, but I'm pretty sure it's just 2 right now.
We are also cutting and lighting our cigars tonight with Cigar Blondie accessories available. Whoa, and that one almost just flung right off my finger. Let's try that again. Available in 3 amazing finishes: chrome, black, and white, featuring the signature double guillotine cutter and the flat fan blade lighter, only available at cigarblondie.com. Check them out today. Well, Nate, as the guest of the show, it's all about you tonight, buddy. Like I said, I talked about before in kind of the pre-show there. Tonight's a kind of an accessories tonight, and something a little bit more specific than just like cutters and lighters. We're talking about your humidors and their quality and protection. Really, I like to think of it. These fun little brown packs. Everyone has seen these little brown packs, whether you know what they are or you don't know what they are. We're going to tell you again tonight. These are probably one of the most important things you need to have in your humidor at all times. That's right. And none other than Boveda, who makes some of the best humidity packs, or whatever what is it, Nate? What's the official term for this? Just a humidity pack, humidity control pack? What?
We call it two-way humidity control.
Okay.
We are in the industry, the one product that will manage humidity control both in and out. So if you're in very humid climates, that Boveda pack is going to absorb humidity to maintain a precise relative humidity, depending on where you like your cigars. And for cigars, we make several different humidities, depending on your preference, the type of storage container or travel container that you're using. And then we also make one humidity percentage specifically for seasoning wood humidors before you put your cigars in, or to re-maintain and re-season a humidor so that that wood is not sucking humidity away from your cigars. Most other products on the market are strictly going to be adding humidity in. Boveda really is unique in that it can both absorb humidity and give off humidity to maintain a precise relative humidity within your container.
Now, let me ask you a question. So, just by looking at it, my first, question would be, I notice compared to a lot of the other packs, right? Yours is the only one that looks like it's made out of brown paper. Now, does that have anything to do with the way that it's two-way? Is that make it a two-way barrier, or is it just kind of unrelated? What physically makes your packs two-way versus your competitors?
It's the reverse osmosis membrane that's right directly underneath that craft paper. So right underneath that brown paper is a reverse osmosis membrane that will allow moisture to both escape and be absorbed, and only allows water vapor to pass back and forth. So as you're cutting that open, you'll see kind of almost a really pale, almost bluish tint to that membrane. And that thin membrane is what does all the work in that pack as far as moving the moisture in and out. And then what's inside that pack are literally two ingredients, salt and water.
Yeah, and here it is right here. I'm just going to squeeze this out for everyone to see. For those who don't know, there it is. There is the mixture.
So it's like an opaque salt and water mixture.
Yeah.
I should add, there is a tiny bit of food grade, essentially thickener or emulsifier called xanthan gum. And what that does is allow that salt. Yep, it allows that. That's the white that you're seeing.
Okay.
That allows that salt to remain evenly suspended in solution so that the pack continues to work all the way to the end of its lifespan. And when it's entirely done, you're going to feel that pack hard and rigid like a cracker.
Now, here's a question I had for you. Now, this is something I often hear people say, or actually see people post online that they do. And oftentimes, you get, anytime it's social media, you get people who comment, and then a debate ensues, right? Now, obviously, you guys want to sell more of these because that's how you make money and that's your business, right? But can you recharge these by soaking them in water? Is that legitimate or no? Because I've seen people do it. I hear people swear by it, but I don't know if that's actually an actual use of the packs themselves.
It's sort of a two-edged sword. You can add moisture back into those packs and essentially recharge them. So they will absorb moisture again and balloon back up full of water. So yes, that you can do that. The problem in doing that, and what has to be present in order for that Boveda pack to work at the precise RH level that is marked on the pack, whether that be 65% or 69% or 72 or 75. If that salt is not evenly distributed and saturated in the liquid in that pack, so in the water, that pack is not going to operate at the marked humidity that's on the pack.
Okay.
So if you take that mostly dried out pack and you put it in a container with a bowl of water, or some people even drop it in distilled water and allow it to absorb, it will balloon back up and you can get it to balloon up like a hard, rigid pillow. The problem is that when you take that out, dry it off, and put that back in with your cigars, you are now adding somewhere closer to 95 to 100% humidity in with your cigars. So while yes, Boveda would love to sell more packets or more Boveda packs to customers because we're all in the business of selling a product.
Yep.
However, what's most important is we want to be that accessory that protects your passions. We want to protect your cigars so that when you take them out, they're at the optimal smoking humidity, whatever it is that you enjoy, whether that's a little bit higher or a little bit lower. We want those cigars to be well protected. And what's happening is when you rehydrate or recharge that pack, which is $4 at your local tobacconist, maybe $5 depending on the price point, you're now putting that in with cigars that are valued at, $100 to hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars to save $4. And now you have, what's going to happen is you're going to have closer to 100% humidity. And as those cigars absorb that humidity, it's going to drop back down. And then it'll sit in that desired humidity range for a little while. And then it's going to give off that humidity pretty quickly because it's basically pushing out 100% humidity. So you're going to recharge that much faster than you would if you were putting in replacement Boveda packs, which typically last in most wood humidors 2 to 4 months. You're probably going to maybe get a month. You might get a little bit longer, but you now have humidity that's far too high for every cigar that you're storing it with. So what we always recommend is when those packs start to get hard and crispy, and I tell all of my customers this, when it's hard around the edge and it feels more like a thick pudding in the middle, then it's time to replace your pack because now they're getting right towards the end of their lifespan. And that way you don't leave them in for another couple of weeks and then they completely dry out. So when it gets hard like that, just take them out, drop in another, one of those packs that you have there, Matt, is what we call our size 60. That's 60 grams of fluid on the inside.
Yep.
That'll humidify up to 25 cigars. And the rule of thumb is you always want to use one pack for every 25 cigars your container or storage unit can hold. So if that wood humidor holds up to 50 cigars, you want to at minimum put 2 packs inside that humidor. And what I like to recommend is at least double that. Keep them all the same humidity. You never want to mix Boveda humidities because what will happen is if you put 69s and 72s in the same humidor, those 2 packs are going to compete with each other to try to, each one is trying to maintain that level of humidity, and they're going to actually fight with each other and they're going to wear out more quickly. You can't ever have too many packs in a humidor as long as they're all the same RH level. So the reason why I suggest at least doubling the packs based on the capacity of your humidor, those packs are just going to last that much longer because they're working more efficiently. There are more of them to give off humidity to maintain that relative humidity and keep that pressure even inside that humidor or that Rubbermaid tote or that Yeti cooler or that, I still haven't figured out a good word for the winadors. Do we call them cigar doors? Basically the refrigerators that are cigar humidors.
Right.
The better the seal, the more airtight that container is, the fewer packs you need. And we make, essentially for cigars, we make 3 different sizes. We make a small 8-gram pack, which is for 5 to 10 cigars, generally used in a travel humidor. You might get that in your pack of cigars when you order from an online retailer or from your local shop. Then that size 60, which is up to 25. And then we make a bigger pack called our 320. Comes in a perforated cardboard box. That'll do up to 100 to 125 cigars.
Wow. Yeah, I use them myself.
There you go.
In the
Always in my travel humidor.
always in my travel humidors, and I usually especially when I go to like trade shows or any kind of major cigar event, I bring 2 of them with me, and they're right over there. And I usually keep at least 1 or 2 in each, and then I use them on a daily basis in like 4 humidors that I have that don't have any other kind of humidification system, and then I have cabinets that have built in, so I don't really use them there, but. On my other humidors, those 4 humidors, I go through them, once a week. I check every pack. I rotate the cigars and make sure that everything is even and getting, equal coverage and making sure the packs are still fresh and swapping them out. I usually buy them in larger quantities, which is great. I love how you guys offer. Is it a 10-count box? What's the box? It's like 45 boxes.
So we do a 12-count cube. 12 in there, and then we do a 20-pack brick.
Yeah.
The only difference in that 20-pack brick is the packs are not individually cellophane wrapped.
Okay.
So once you open that, you have to make sure to close that Ziploc seal on that pack so the packs don't lose humidity. But if you have, let's say, 3 or 4 humidors and you want to buy everything at once and just drop them all in, that's a great way to do it. I use one of those size 60 packs, that little smaller than a postcard, in my Pelican, like basically 10 cigar travel case. And that will last for me easily upwards of a year, year and a half, if not longer.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do notice the ones in my travel humidors tend to last longer than the actual humidors themselves. And now I know why.
Yep.
You know, now I know why,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
It's all about airtight. And the nice thing with Boveda is in your airtight containers, there really isn't any need to have to open those containers and add fresh air into the cigars, other than if it's just your preference. That humidity is going to stay absolutely dialed in, plus or minus 1% on those packs. So you're going to just hold rock solid. You're not going to have to worry about your cigars getting too humidified, potentially getting mold, getting
Right.
cigar beetles popping out. The cigars can really, you can really just store those away, stack your coolers up, stack your storage up, to rotate them just to kind of even out, where the cigars are in the container. But really, when it comes down to storage, as long as you're using the appropriate size pack for your storage. So let's say you have a Yeti cooler that has, I don't know, let's say 500 cigars in that cooler. You really don't have to use one of those size 320s for every 100 cigars, because that cooler is so airtight. I would say you could use 2, and you're going to still get, I would say, anywhere from 6 months to a year on those packs, depending on how often you're in that cooler. So you can really get a long life. But because of the way the packs regulate that RH level within that cooler, temperature changes, pressure changes, it's going to accommodate for that. And that is going to move air just by the change in pressure, as it's accommodating for that inside that container, as long as you have a little bit of room for airspace and they're not just really jam-packed in there.
Right.
So I think it's a good idea to leave a little bit of space between the boxes and not really jam them in there, so you do get some airflow. And then, every time you pop in there to grab cigars, you're going to add some fresh air there, and then it's going to reacclimate once you close that lid in a relatively short amount of time. Within a matter of a few hours, it's going to equalize that RH level within that container, especially those airtight containers. It takes a little longer in a wood humidor, because you have, even in the best ones, you have some air moving in and out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And I always try to tell people too, when it comes to like humidor upkeep, I always tell people, make sure that everything, whether it's like a box type humidor or a tepidor, or you actually have like a cabinet where you have box storage. I always tell people rotate your stuff, not like every week or every day, but like, on a somewhat regular basis, rotate your stuff, especially if you have stuff that sits around for long periods of time. Because because sometimes some stuff, it gets, like you said, the airflow gets trapped off from it, and it kind of sits in a spot that doesn't get a lot of airflow, doesn't get a lot of humidity, and then it starts to dry out. Or you get, if you have a humidity machine like an Oasis, or I know QI's got one, I forget what it's called. If you have a box that's near that for a long period of time, I know I learned this the hard way. I had a box next to one of them in the cabinet. And it was a box I really wasn't smoking much of. It was a box that I kind of put away for a while. And I remember I came back to it like months later, and I opened it, and some of the cigars had mold on them, and I'm like, and they were all really wet, and I'm like, this sucks. And then I'm just like, yeah, like they've been sitting next to this, so it's a little bit of common sense, but you kind of want to rotate, because you have stuff that maybe gets more moisture, maybe stuff that gets more dry. It's always good to rotate, and always good to check your stuff too, especially when you have stuff that sits for so long. All good information, and I think that everyone needs to know this, because it is very important.
And that you make a great point. Oh, go ahead, Mitchell.
Oh, I was just going to say, with those active humidifications, you're definitely right, where there's so much more concentrated humidification. With Boveda, like, I know people are sometimes like, they get them and they're like, oh, can I place this on my cigar, under my cigars? Do I have to like put it in a separate area and the humidification will diffuse over? Well, it's a good segue into that.
Yeah. So Dallas has can I field this question, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So Dallas has a great question. Any recommendations on RH levels to keep in your humidor? I smoke a lot of Cameroon. Yeah. Me as well, Dallas. Cameroon is one of my absolute favorite cigar wrappers. Super delicate. I I personally tend to keep nearly all of my cigars. The window I try to smoke them in is about 63 to 65%. I like that for the combustion that I get. It's a much more even and consistent combustion on the cigar. And I just personally like the flavor that I get out of cigars that are in that RH level. Some people like cigars significantly more humidified. I met an individual at one of the trade shows that smokes predominantly nothing but Cubans and likes his Cubans between 72 and 75%. And it's not my wheelhouse. It's not my preference, but that's what they really like. So to answer Delis's question, I would say I probably skew on the Cameroon wrapper because it's so delicate. I might skew a little bit closer to 65, maybe 67%, just because that wrapper is so delicate. But I found that the cigars that I have that are Cameroon, I've got some of the LFD Cameroons in my humidor at home. Fantastic cigars. I smoke a lot of the Don Carlos line. Just really absolutely love Cameroon wrapper. And I have absolutely no issues with any of my cigars in that, 63 to 65 or 67% range. And what I tend to do is all of my airtight humidors or travel cases all have 65%. So I have a couple of our old Boveda acrylic humidors that we used to sell, and they're still available from another retailer picked them up. But those, because they're airtight, I use 65. And then in my wood humidor, I was gifted a very nice 250 count solid bird's eye maple humidor. And that I use 69%, and it holds pretty much rock solid at 65% on all of my cigars. So that's the only difference. I use 69 in that particular container. On the whole, most customers in their average wood humidors that they might pick up from an online retailer or possibly Amazon, they're going to have a lot more air leakage. They're going to be, potentially walls made out of MDF that are going to absorb more moisture. Those you can use predominantly 72%, potentially even 75% if it's real leaky. Like, Matt, some of those humidors that have that analog hygrometer wedged in the front.
Oh, yeah.
Like a clock.
Yeah.
Those are literally just pressure fit. There's just a ton of air that gets pushed out through there, especially once you put humidity or a Boveda pack in there. You're going to lose a lot of humidity. 75% works great in those types of containers. They often have a glass lid. That 75 is going to allow for a little extra humidity to compensate for what gases out through those openings. And then your cigars hold about 69, 68%.
See, I didn't even know that. That's a very good point. I didn't know that myself.
Yeah, and I even learned a really interesting thing from one of my accounts out in Las Vegas, a shop called Cigar Box. Jason, who is the manager of that shop, he and I had a conversation about, where do you store your cigars in really dry climates? And by and large, most people tend to go 72 or 75% to try to compensate for how dry the conditions are, both with air conditioning in their house and then outside. In actuality, you end up creating, more often than not, especially if you have a pretty solid container or a humidor or a container that holds good humidity. When that cigar is sitting up closer to 70 to 72%, and you step outside into 10, 15%, 20% humidity, all that moisture in that cigar wants to push out of that cigar into that drier atmosphere. And there's a pretty good chance your cigars are going to crack and split and possibly blow up on you. The better solution when you're in a really dry climate is to actually go lower in humidity. So Mitchell, I saw you had 62%. Is that in your cigar travel case?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm seeing more and more current smokers going to 65 and even 62% in their airtight cases, because the cigars still smoke beautifully. And you generally have no issues with cigars cracking and splitting when you get into drier humidity environments, because those cigars are a full 10% or more lower than if you sort them at 72%. So you don't have that extra bit of humidity that wants to push out through that cigar and crack that, beautiful, especially Cameroon wrapper or Connecticut wrapper, Connecticut shade. It was a really interesting that I was unaware of, and has helped a lot, especially when I go to Vegas for the cigar shows. I make sure everything's at 65, and I have no issues with my cigars blowing up when I go step outside to have a cigar. It just works way better. And those cigars can handle that slightly drier humidity absolutely perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have a fun, whenever I get cigars, I start at 65 usually for 2 to 3 weeks, and I use everything in Tupperdoors. It's airtight Tupperware and in a temperature controlled unit. And so I start with 65 just because I don't know, did the cigar come in drier? Is it wetter? And I usually let that rest. And then everything else I stored long term at 62. And I barely touch that, and everything comes out perfect. I live in it even works great in a slightly moist environment. So from what I've noticed, when I was storing things at 69, 65, there wasn't the cracking, but there was the issue where I'd get about halfway through the cigar and it would just become super soggy because it was already quite moist, and that natural moisture from the air as I'm smoking was still just absorbing into the cigar. Now that I'm storing at 62, again, there's still no cracking issues. The cigars come out still nice and plump, but I get through the entire cigar, and still, even by the midpoint and end point, it's not like I'm squishing the cigar and it's super moist because it was balanced off of that, had that extra 10% wiggle room like you're kind of talking about. So that's what I've just found for me personally, and yeah, it's working great at 62 for long-term storage.
Yeah, and where I'm at here in Minnesota, we have like today it's 87 degrees right now where I'm at. So it's, on the warmer side of things, or getting to be warmer. A fair amount of humidity. We typically, I think, probably hover anywhere from upper, 60s to even sometimes up into the 80% humidity, depending on the time of year. So, fairly moist for a climate that gets quite cold in the winter. And then, of course, in winter, it's super cold, super dry. And at 65, it compensates for that extra humidity that you're talking about when it's, really damp and wet and hot in the middle of summer. And then it also allows me to walk out, on a 15-degree day and walk my dogs and smoke a fairly delicate wrapper cigar. And I virtually never have cigars crack on me, even walking the dog in that cold of a temperature.
Yeah, Dallas actually, it's at altitude as well, Mitch, living in British Columbia.
Yeah, I was just replying to him. Sea level. I'm living at sea level. We do have tons of mountains over here, but I don't often get the chance to get up there and have a cigar. Pretty much everywhere here is sea level, so
that's good to know. One of the things I wanted to bring up tonight, really quick, was the Boveda. If you've ever bought in boxes of cigars, you may have noticed that, and I have with me a box of LFD's 2021 TAAs. You'll notice on the side this little Boveda stripe, and that lets you know that box was shipped from the factory with a Boveda pack inside the box to maintain freshness. Now, about how many manufacturers do you make, have these arrangements with?
Boy, that's a good question, because we've just added this year alone, I think, another almost 20 manufacturers. I'm going to say it's,
wow.
Boy, I should have looked before I got on the call. I'm going to say it's somewhere in the, 50, 60 plus that we're working with, maybe 50, I think. And we're constantly adding more. We brought on, I believe last year, we brought on an employee here at Boveda by the name of Mike Staus. Mike had worked for Cigar for a number of years and Quality Importers, and then left there to run a shop or help run a shop in Kansas City called La Cultura. And our head of supply chain here at Boveda was also a former Cigar employee, and made Mike aware of the fact that they were hiring for this new role, basically working directly with cigar manufacturers. And Mike's been an absolutely amazing addition to Boveda and has brought on a number of new brands. We've got Patina packaging with Boveda. We've got Black Label and Blackworks packaging all their cigars with Boveda. Just adding, new brands kind of consistently every week that are packaging with Boveda. And what's really great about that little tab that's on the outside of that box, when that Boveda pack is sitting inside that box, and we specifically make sizes just for manufacturers that are ultra thin, that don't take up any extra space. And Dallas, I'll answer your question here in just a second. It's a great question. That pack doesn't add any extra space. It can sit either sometimes on the bottom of those cigars, it can sit right in between, or it can sit right on top. I don't know if any of you watched Half Wheel's basically packaging awards for this last year, and Mirafel won their top spot for best packaging, and they actually prominently feature that Boveda pack right on top inside the box. And what that pack does for most manufacturers, because there are some exceptions, most manufacturers are getting those boxes right from the box factory. They are filling those boxes as fast as they can fill them and get them out the door because they're trying to fill orders. And that Boveda pack, really, its primary job is to protect those cigars in transit from the wood of that box, sucking moisture out of those cigars, as it has, multiple temperature changes and humidity changes in transit from either Nicaragua or the Dominican or Honduras up to the United States and to your local retailer where it ends up in that humidor. One of the manufacturers, and this will answer Dallas's question, Fuente was the first manufacturer to package their cigars with Boveda. And you will still see in Fuente boxes the Fuente artwork on that pouch that's inside their box of cigars. And on the inside, it will say, it's a white packaging that will say Humidipack. And that is one of the original names of Boveda packs. They were called, there was a very first name, and then it became Humidipack for several years. And then for the last, I believe, 19 years, it's been Boveda. And all those packs are in every box of Fuente cigars. And what's unique about Fuente that and they're not the only ones that do this, but they're one of the unique ones. All of their boxes are humidified and brought up to the precise relative humidity before the cigars ever go in the box. Then they add that Boveda pack. So when you get a box of Fuente, that pack will never be used up. It will never have done its full job because they do such a great job of making sure that every aspect of that cigar packaging is all at the same precise relative humidity before it ships out. And that's one of the things that makes them so unique. Interesting sidebar, there is one of the Boveda Box Press episodes was an interview with our two owners, Tim Swale and Sean Knutson. And they were talking about how they came up with the name Boveda, which means vault in Spanish. So it's, you put your cigars in a humidor and that's your vault to keep those cigars safe and keep them protected. They were calling it Boveda. And most people pronounce our company name Boveda or Boveda. And we always say, doesn't matter how you pronounce it. We just want you to keep buying Boveda and storing your cigars with Boveda. But when they were bringing Fuente on board to package all their cigars with Boveda, Carlito Fuente had to stop them and say, boys, what in the world are you saying? What is this Boveda? It's not Boveda, it's Boveda. And Carlito Fuente actually had to tell our founders, Sean and Tim, how to correctly pronounce the name of Boveda, which I think is absolutely hilarious.
I think it's funny you tell all that because I was down in the Fuente factory last year, and I remember when Carlito took us to the aging rooms and seeing Boveda, and I was like, huh. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I asked him about it. He's like, yeah, it means vault in Spanish. And I'm like, and he could see all the clicking going. He's like, yes, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. So
yep, it's fantastic.
It's
they've
true.
Been such great supporters to really help the Boveda to get off the ground. It was, just a really great relationship that we've had with the Fuente family. And Dallas is a huge fan of Boveda, is great friends with Sean and Tim, and has been really involved with Boveda really almost since the beginning. So it's just super cool to see how far-reaching Boveda has come in the last, it's over 25 years now. So we celebrated our 25th anniversary last year, really as I think the industry standard in two-way humidity control to, protect your passions, to protect your cigars, and make sure that when you go into that Tupperware or into that wood humidor or into your travel case and you pull that cigar out, you know that it's going to be just perfect.
Now, one of the things that I was asked to bring up on the show tonight was the fact that Boveda actually makes products for other types of products, and well, really the packs. The packs are made for not just cigars, but also other kinds of products as well. And one of your, I would say, your biggest ones is cannabis. Now, obviously, that's not something we talk a lot about on this show, but for the sake of you being here in Boveda, drawing a lot of similarities to, obviously, both of them are naturally grown agricultural products. Makes a lot of sense, is to keep them fresh. Would you say that the cannabis section of at least your business is bigger than the cigars, or vice versa? What would you say is a bigger part of your client base?
I don't think it's. Yes, it's bigger. It's I think still the cannabis and tobacco side are pretty even as far as our reach into the market and as far as how many consumers use them. That being said, in the next 10 to 15 years, cannabis, I think, will far outpace our tobacco business just by the scope of how many consumers use and consume cannabis on a regular basis. It's just a massive market. So there is potential for cannabis to be just enormous for, as an industry for Boveda to protect that cannabis flower. And, when you're talking about a cigar, you're talking about protecting the oils and sugars in this cigar. And Mitchell, you mentioned earlier about aging your cigars. Really the best way to age your cigars is at a lower humidity, 62, even down in sometimes 58. If you really want to slow down that maturing process, that kind of continual fermentation that happens with tobacco leaf as you store it. And then you can bring them up to your desired smoking humidity, depending on where you're storing those cigars. Now, when we're talking about cannabis, we make two different RH levels to store cannabis flower. We make 62% and we make 58%. Really the safe window for cannabis, especially on the upper end, is 65%. Above that, you run a really high chance that your cannabis is going to develop mold. And that's far more dangerous when it comes to cannabis than it is with mold on a cigar, specifically because cannabis, you're going to inhale that when you consume that product. Cigars, typically you might get some smoke in your lungs, but you're not going to be inhaling the smoke of that cigar. So there's far less danger of that mold becoming detrimental or harmful. And then depending on where you live, if you like your cannabis flower a little bit stickier, you're going to go 62%. If you're in a really humid climate, you want to keep that from getting too humidified, you're going to drop into that 58%. And then there's been some interesting studies coming out that show that cannabis is actually more enjoyable to smoke kind of between 50 and 55%, as we're finding out. Once you're going to actually, put that into a joint, or you're going to consume that in some other form of, let's say, vaporizer or pipe, however you like to consume your cannabis. Kind of like pipes, smokers will have some tobaccos that they will shred or get that tobacco ready on a napkin or a sheet of paper or on a tray. Then they'll let that sit for 10 or 15 minutes at room temperature to dry out a little bit. Then they'll pack the bowl of that pipe and smoke that tobacco because they want it to dry out a little bit. Same thing is happening with cannabis. When it's a little less humidified, it's a little easier to, let's say, roll a joint. And then it actually makes, we're finding, for a more enjoyable smoking experience. I don't consume much cannabis, so I can't speak to that as a consumer. I'll be able to try that now here going forward. In August of this year, Minnesota just became the 23rd state to legalize recreational cannabis. So that will now be something that can be consumed here legally in Minnesota. So we'll have more people consuming that now. It'll be, I think, a year, they said, until we have our first dispensary at the earliest. Mm-hmm. But it's cool to see that becoming, more widely accepted here in the U.S. It's a really exceptionally cool plant. In cannabis, what you're protecting in those cannabis flowers is you're protecting a compound called terpenes. Very similar to the compounds that are in hops. Hops contain terpenes as well, and they off-gas and evaporate very quickly. Literally, as soon as that plant is harvested, it starts to off-gas terpenes. And so the goal is to protect that flower and ensure that as few terpenes escape as possible. And so the reason why Boveda works so well is when you put Boveda into a container with that cannabis flower, that Boveda pack creates a thin layer of moisture around that flower. We call that a monolayer. And it protects that flower from off-gassing those terpenes. So the unique thing that happens when you open a jar of cannabis that hasn't been stored with Boveda, you're going to get a real blast of all of that aroma. That's all those terpenes that have off-gassed off of that cannabis flower. You're going to get hit with that right in the face, and it's going to smell, for people that enjoy cannabis, it's going to smell, generally fantastic. When you open up a jar that has Boveda in it, it's going to be a much more muted smell. It's not going to be quite as pungent. It's not going to be quite as thick. The big difference is when you goes to grind that flower to get ready to smoke it. When you grind that flower that hasn't been stored with Boveda, it generally smells fairly flat. It's not nearly as rich and perfumey. And when you grind that flower that has been stored with Boveda, you just get this blast of aroma and terpenes and all of those terpenes that are staying in that flower. And the reason those are so important is the terpenes are what really give that cannabis its
strength.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is its strength. It gives it that what they call entourage effect. Took me a second to remember that word. It's the compound that's going to help you if you have muscle aches, muscle pains, if you struggle with PTSD, if you have anxiety, if you have depression. There are different terpenes that can really have helpful effects for different types of conditions. And if you can maximize the quantity of that terpene in that flower, you're then going to get much more medicinal effect when you consume that cannabis.
Interesting. Yeah, like I said, that's not something we normally talk about on our show. But since you were here, I feel like this was a good way to really, talk about the comparisons there, at least from a scientific standpoint, not really a use standpoint. It's very interesting. And I know the other thing that I've seen advertised that you guys also make products for is for wooden instruments.
Yep. We do, yeah, and there are several major guitar manufacturers that package and ship all of their cigars with Boveda, like direct to the consumer or to the retailer. Fender, Martin, Taylor, Alhambra is another one. So there are multiple. There are companies that make clarinet reeds and oboe reeds that package their reeds with Boveda. And literally then the reeds, instead of having to soak them in water or, soak them with moisture in your mouth, they come ready to play because they're already at that precise, perfect humidity. You can literally take them out of the container, pop it onto your instrument, and you can just play. So it's really cool. And the interesting thing they discovered, several of these manufacturers of guitars, is that they would put the Boveda packs in the guitar case, and then the packs would really wear out quite quickly. And what they realized is that predominantly guitar cases are made out of solid wood, and then they're lined with some type of soft material to protect that guitar on the inside.
Right.
Well, that wood needs to be seasoned just like a wood humidor. So what they do now is they actually season those cases before they put the guitars in, and then they actually ship them with Boveda, and those packs last much longer. So anything that has wood is going to be able to pull moisture, guitar included. And they were then able to actually get those packs to last a lot longer in those cigar cases by pre-seasoning the wood of that guitar case.
Very, very interesting stuff. And
nice.
The more you think about it, anything wood product that you want to, keep the quality of life of. Keeping it fresh with humidity is really the big thing.
Absolutely. And our wooden instrument humidity is it's a 49% pack that when it starts out, it pushes out a little higher humidity to basically saturate the space. And then it holds the humidity at that wooden instrument, guitar, violin, you name it, oboe, clarinet, at 49% humidity. I didn't know this, that upright basses are under a much higher amount of tension in that instrument body. Those actually, if I get this correct, I think need to be stored, I think at 69%, because that body has so much pressure on it that actually keeps that instrument at a much more consistent playing level. We have shipped Boveda to customers that ship mosquitoes, spiders. If you can imagine it, there is a use almost that you can use for Boveda. Like if you're a fan of any type of like soft gummy candy, Sour Patch Kids, Hot Tamales, Dots, Mike and Ike's. For most of those products, if you put them in a Ziploc bag and drop a 69% Boveda 8-gram pack and let that sit overnight, those candies are going to be much softer and seemingly much fresher than when you got them off the shelf at the convenience store or at the grocery store. So I'm a huge fan of Hot Tamales. I will get the 1 pound bag and I'll drop a Boveda 69 in there and leave it for 2 or 3 days. And when I open that up, they are absolutely just perfect.
Really?
Same applies to edibles in the cannabis industry. Those can get hard and dry out just like any other candy. And if you store those with a Boveda 69% pack, you're going to keep those edibles like just at their perfect consumption.
Yeah, Delis actually even added that he uses his packs for coffee as well, which again makes a lot of sense. Les Mann asked a question: who was behind the idea for Boveda advertising campaign featuring the cigar manufacturers?
To be honest, Les, I'm not exactly sure who here at Boveda came up with that initial campaign, because we've had them for a number of years. My guess would be our founders, Tim and Sean, and the team they had, many years ago, I think came up with that. And then we've continued to add on, and we're working to add on even more cigar producers that store their cigars with Boveda, use Boveda to ship their cigars. So hopefully you're going to see some new manufacturers coming out for my humidor.
Very interesting. We have to hit our news segment really quickly, so I'm gonna sashay over to that, and then we'll be back. Our cigar news is once again brought to you by Micallef Cigars. If you head over to MicallefCigars.com today, you can sign up to become an official ambassador, and while you're at it, head over to their Facebook group and join there as well to smoke and hang out with your fellow Micallef ambassadors. This week, some pretty interesting news as we continue to see the product announcements for PCA 2023 roll across our desks. Here is one that we knew about, but we weren't sure when we were going to see it. And I think, to be honest with you, most of us here and some of my peers in the media who I spoke to about it were actually a little surprised to see it this year. But nonetheless, there will be a new Alfonso coming from Selected Tobacco this year. That's right. The Alfonso Gran Selección will debut at PCA 2023. Alfonso Gran Selección will be released at PCA 2023 in Las Vegas. The Alfonso Gran Selección is the sequel to the highly rated Alfonso Añejo that debuted at last year's PCA show to much fanfare. Alfonso Gran Selección features an oily, rich Ecuadorian Habano wrapper cloaked over Dominican and Nicaraguan fillers that provide a darker flavor profile than its predecessor. It will be available in 5 sizes: the Exclusivos 6x54 Torpedo, the Precisos 7.5x40, the Estelares 5.5x54, Enormes 6.5x60, and the Grandiosos 8x50. This will be available for retailers who have United accounts or new United account holders with Selected Tobacco at PCA this year. Very excited. Mitchell, I know you were at that booth last year. It was on display. It was on display, but no one really talked about it. It was just kind of there. I think there was like one box, or there was like a set of the tubes. I remember seeing it, and then I later saw it in a Selected Tobacco catalog that I have. And so it's there, and it's been in the works, but no one would really talk a lot about it or say, hey, when is this coming? But here it is. It's coming this year. So, Mitchell, is it safe to say that United and Selected Tobacco are gearing up for another major trade show year like they had last year?
Yeah, as we talked about on Spare Notes, we were talking about companies that were kind of expecting to come out with new stuff and that we're excited for. And I think we all kind of mentioned United / Selected Tobacco, right? And yeah, Alfonso last year had a huge year, won multiple awards, obviously our number one cigar of the year. And I think adding this next piece to it, the bolder cigar, very unique vitolas as well. A company that is not afraid to get out of that Robusto Toro, Gordo, classic 3. And really, when you're getting into a price point like that and a cigar that is, definitely going to be something for special occasions, you want a special vitola. And all those vitolas just looking absolutely delicious, very unique. And they're already looking like a booth to hit up and check out this year for sure.
Yeah, I'm very excited to get over there and see their booth. It's going to be quite to see, and I'm sure, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if we go there and we see stuff this year that we've never seen before again. That's just there, that no one's really going to talk about. It's just kind of there, you know, like, hey, look at what we're working on, but, you know, we won't talk about it. You know, it's always exciting. You know, you go in there and you see stuff. It's like going to the Fuente booth, you know what I mean? It's like you go in there and you see stuff, you're like, oh, it's that. But, like, they won't really get into it. They're just kind of like, yeah, it's something we're working on. It's just kind of there. And it's fun because then you just start being like, I saw this at the trade show one time, but, like, I don't know. Are they going to do something with it? So far they got Atabey Black, Ritos, the NFT that will be there on display, that will be available to the lounges and to the NFT owners. And now the Alfonso will be there, and as well as more sizes than the Red Anchor. And I don't think I missed any of the other announcements that they've made. If I have, I'm sorry.
I think that's everything.
I think those are the only three. And I wouldn't be shocked if there was at least one or two more before we got there. So very exciting. Can't wait for the trade show. I'm going to bring it back to Nate. Sorry, my mouth is just getting a little dry.
Yeah, someone was asking me about cigar. I just lit up a Micallef Migdalia Corona Extra, I think, 6x46.
That's a great size. I like that size
nice.
a lot. Yeah, I like that size a lot. So yeah, no. Speaking of trade show, Nate, you know, as we talked about before, Boveda will be at the trade show once again this year.
Absolutely.
With a beautiful booth. The last time I saw you was at TPE. I know you guys normally attend both trade shows.
We do.
It's definitely an exciting time of the year, and it sounds to me like that's also a great time for you guys to work with those manufacturers who you partner up with for the packaging as well.
That's 100% correct. Yeah, it's myself and my couple of my counterparts who, you know, handle all of the cigar shops, the online retailers, the distributors. You know, we spend pretty much every minute of each day just hammering out orders and connecting with our customers and just, you know, talking with everybody. You end up hoarse by basically, you know, day 3/4. But then our OEM rep, Mike, gets to spend pretty much, you know, most of the show interacting and talking with all of these producers that aren't yet packaging with Boveda and connecting with the ones that are and making sure they have what they need. It's just a win-win for everybody, and it's such a great event. It's like I alluded it earlier today to like summer camp. It's like you get to see all your buddies that you maybe only get to see once or twice a year, and we all spend time having cigars during the show, and then we hang out after the show, and I'm sure, well, I do stay up way too late.
Yeah, I do too.
I can't help myself. I guess it's that massive case of FOMO that I have. But it's, you know, for me, it's a chance when I'm seeing customers and my accounts at the show. After the fact, it's a chance to get to have cigars with them in a more relaxed environment and just spend time, you know, getting to know them and find out about their families and the stuff they do outside of this industry. And it's, you know, it just really locks in those relationships, which is what makes this industry so great.
Yeah, it's always one of my favorite times of the year. It's always exciting. It's exciting to see people like you guys too. I mean, we interact with the manufacturers, the cigar manufacturers, I should say, more often than I think we do with anyone else. And I think that's just the nature of the game, just because they often have just so much more that's going on all the time. That, you know, we are constantly, you know, covering and going over. But, you know, when we get to see guys like you, it is exciting because, you know, I feel like we don't get to engage as much, and it's a great time to catch up and see each other. Plus, it's always exciting to see you guys at your booth. You guys are always dressed up so nice. You guys have a nice booth. You guys are always just look like you're having the best time. It's usually not too packed at the Boveda booth either, which is nice. You can kind of get in there and do what you got to do instead of, you know, fighting for room at a big manufacturer booth, which is sometimes
right.
the
And
case.
we try to be efficient, and yeah, we stay, you know, we stay super busy, but we've got a nice big booth, lots of tables. We're able to spread out. We've got, you know, nice soft padding underneath the carpet. In fact, I don't know if you guys know Big Tony Gomez with Espinosa Cigars.
Oh yeah.
He actually brought up the fact that he likes our booth so much because we have that nice thick extra padding underneath the carpet. And he was, we always have espresso and coffee at the booth, so people stop by, get their first cup of coffee in the morning. And he stepped on that carpet. He's like, "Oh man, you guys have that good carpet, man. Jack Geronio, why don't we have this under our booth? We got to get the good carpet like Boveda." And I was like, "Yeah, it's not too bad, but we have a really great team at Boveda, and we really love spending time just together as staff at the booth. And it's just such a great experience at the show. It's usually my one time a year that I get to spend time with Dallas, because he comes and works the Boveda booth with us. And it's just a fantastic time to get to see some really awesome people.
Absolutely. And it's coming up quick, so it'll be here before we know it. And Mitchell and I will both be there, as well as Kevin.
Fantastic.
The whole team will be there. Kevin doesn't have to travel, though, because he already lives in Las Vegas, so it's, I don't know. I guess it's not as magical for him because he's already there, but he gets to see everybody, which is great.
Yeah, right.
Before we go, Nate, first of all, thank you for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate your time. I guess I'll play a game with you.
I had a couple questions, actually.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah,
Before we get to those, I want to play a game with
Okay.
Nate, because I want to give him a chance to kind of unwind a little bit. So we're gonna play Desert Island. This is just it. This is just at random. Desert Island. 3 things you can't live without.
Oh man, Desert Island. My family. A great cup of natural processed Ethiopian coffee.
That's very specific.
And
I like that.
And I'm going to go a cigar. And I think if I had to pick, we had this conversation maybe 3-4 months ago here at Boveda. Like, what would you pick as a Desert Island cigar? And I think it might be a toss-up for me, just for everyday enjoyment. Either the Casa Cuba Double Seis or the Ashton VSG.
Very good choices.
Oh, yeah.
Every day, really don't get tired of them. And there are a few others I could throw in there as well. But I think if you're talking Desert Island cigars, those two are, a couple of bangers. And I'm one of those that really gravitates to the Casa Cuba line in the Fuente family of offerings that kind of goes a little bit unnoticed, and I think just is a absolutely fantastic cigar.
Very well chosen.
So that's what Desert Island.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Just
Sounds like you're also a coffee man.
I know, that was very specific.
Oh yeah, I drink. I'm not particular about a cup of coffee. If somebody says, "Hey, do you want a cup of coffee?" I'll be like, "Yes." I don't care what it is. It's a cup of coffee. I enjoy the company. I enjoy the place. Doesn't really matter. I love a good diner cup of coffee. It kind of hits the spot. But if I have the choice and I'm buying it with my own money, I'm looking for exceptional coffee. I generally, most of my coffee is made either pour over or with a coffee machine called the Technivorm Mocha Master. It's sort of the Mac Daddy of drip coffee machines that basically brews just like a pour over. I bought it probably, I'm going to say 18 years ago, maybe closer to 20. It's like guts of it is all copper. So it's literally from the minute you pour the water in and turn it on to when it's brewing is about 40 seconds. It's got like all copper guts. So it's just super reliable. I tend to get most of my coffee nowadays from a company called Fellow. They make the like coffee grinders, coffee machines. They do the kind of those cool gooseneck pour over pots that you see at some of the nicer coffee shops. They have a service where you enter your name, address, credit card, and then they text every Tuesday with a new unique offering from some roaster, generally all over the world, predominantly the US, but a lot of different roasters throughout the world. And they give you the brewing instructions, where it was from, the family that made it, elevation, all of those things, the process of how they roasted it. And then they give you the price, including shipping, and you decide how many bags you want. So I'm personally, my favorite coffees are the natural process coffees. Quick description: they take the coffee cherries, they let them dry under the sun. Those cherries shrivel up and dry on that coffee bean, and then they slough it off. And then those beans are shipped off, and then they're roasted. So you get these intense berry-like aromas, sometimes super floral, strawberry, blueberry, blackberry. It's literally, you wouldn't believe it unless you smelled it. You grind some of these coffees and they'll smell like blueberry pie or like a homemade strawberry Pop-Tart. I mean, they're just fantastic. As opposed to a wash process where they soak those cherries in a large vat and that cherry sloughs off. They take the coffee beans out, they dry them, and then they ship them off and roast them. So yeah, I'm a bit of a coffee nerd, or a lot of a coffee nerd.
I can tell. But that's not always a bad thing. That's
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's good. I mean,
And
coffee's important. I'll give you that. Coffee is important.
right? And I'm a firm believer that if you were to ask me what I think the best pairing is as far as a beverage with cigars, I'll go coffee all day long. Grown in the same general latitude as cigars, similar process. It's fermented and then it's dry. It's dried, fermented, and then roasted or smoked. Similar thing happens with cigars. Dried, fermented, and then when you torch that cigar and you light it up, then you're essentially roasting that tobacco. So I just think that's my favorite pairing.
Very well said. Very well said. Mitchell, I know you had some questions.
Yeah, so I know I'm not quite sure what is still being produced or what's not produced, but obviously Boveda has and or still does create more than just humidity packs. Previously, I think when I first started getting into things, you guys had a hygrometer, a Bluetooth hygrometer. You mentioned as well as your old acrylic humidors. What other things is Boveda currently producing, like outside of humidity packs, as well as is there anything in the reins to possibly come out this year in the next couple of years that Boveda is working on in terms of jumping into outside of just humidity?
There are some unique things that more so on the cannabis side, as far as that industry, less on the tobacco side. We have our Boveda 1-year humidor bags. Really, the main reason why we no longer resell the acrylic humidors and those Boveda butlers, the hygrometers, those are products that were made by somebody else, and then they were branded as Boveda, and we sold those as a Boveda product. And so Boveda has really brought everything as much as possible in-house so that we really can control the manufacture, the production, the whole supply chain. All of our Boveda packs are made in the United States, predominantly at a facility in southwestern Wisconsin. And then there are a couple of other facilities making some of our smaller size packs that are used for cannabis. But we just came out with a product for cannabis called the Boveda closure. So it's literally a lid that has the Boveda solution embedded in the lid. And so that lid can then fit on standard food grade and medical grade plastic and glass jars. So you can actually buy the lids, attach them to your container with your cannabis, and it's already got Boveda built into the container. So it's a really nice tool for cannabis cultivators and growers to be able to package their Boveda without having to do another step of adding that Boveda pack in. It's just built right into the closure. We just came out with something called a fresh bag, which is Boveda built into a bag that holds up to a pound of cannabis so that the cannabis is stored perfectly for those cultivators. And then we have some other new stuff coming down the pike that we can't talk about yet, but there'll be some cool new stuff. So
that's awesome. Right. I forgot about the butlers, and I actually noticed I still had the app on my phone, and I had bought one, and I put it in there, and I stopped kind of checking it because I just do it all so manually now. But I still have the app on my phone, and I noticed a few months ago maybe, all of a sudden it said CI, and it changed from Boveda to CI, and I was like, oh yeah, and I forgot that it seemed like you guys weren't really working with that product anymore. So thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, we had phased out of it, and then Cigars International picked up that same unit, and I think they call it their smart sensor.
Yeah.
So that's a product that CI sells. The nice thing for anybody that has an existing Boveda butler, as long as you just update that app and just relog in, it still is going to work exactly as it did. As long as it's got a good battery in it, that's going to function exactly the same as when it was the Boveda butler. So for those people that have them, they should still continue to work seamlessly the same way they were working. I don't personally need them in my humidors because as long as I know I have Boveda in there, I know that humidity is holding precisely where it's supposed to be. And as long as the packs are still fluid, my cigars are good to go. So I just don't bother with it.
Yeah, I bought one because I thought it was cool and I wanted to check it out. But I learned, I'm like, I don't really need it because I kind of already know where my humidity's at any given time. So cool product, but
Speaking of accessories, I tend to use the Cigar Medics humidimeter far more than I would rely on my Boveda Butler, just to see where, like, especially when I get, like, let's say I get cigars at PCA and I know I'm going to have to sit on them for a while because they've been dry and it's super dry in Vegas. So I put them in our Boveda humidor bags. I let them sit for 4 to 6 weeks, usually at a minimum. Then I'll pull out that humidimeter.
Yep.
Slide those little tongs out, pop that in, see where they're sitting, and I check both the head and the foot because you get slightly different readings at both ends. And if they're right where I want them to be, then I move them into my humidor or into another storage and I smoke them. It's a great tool, and those guys that run that company they're just awesome human beings.
Yeah, it's something I've been noticing getting more popular the last couple of years. As people, we actually have one that we've used, and it's actually a nifty little tool. And I like that. And it seems to be getting more and more popular, which is interesting to see. So
yeah, and I always have it in my backpack, so it works great.
And Garrett Robinson has just joined us, and he says, "How sexy is my screen right now?" Nice. Well, thank you,
Garrett.
He knows. Let me tell you something. He knows how to get to someone's heart. He really does. He
sure does.
Yeah, he's got that touch.
Great to see you, Garrett.
Great to see you, buddy. Great. I'm glad he's here.
We'd be spooning, I'm sure, right now if he was here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Probably what happened. I can speak from experience. Mitchell, did you have any other questions for Nate?
No, I think that was everything.
I just want to make sure. Now he's getting all excited. Get the kissy face. So hot. Yeah. I mean, Garrett's.
Oh, yeah. There's no stopping him now.
Oh,
he's fired up.
It'll be a
today.
great time at PCA.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will be. Yes, it will be. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for our show this week. Nate, I just want to once again thank you for coming on the show. This has been great. Been wanting to do something with you guys for a while. I'm glad we could talk about Boveda and all the amazing stuff you do, and just exactly what those packs are and how they work. Because I have a lot of conversations with the consumers, and some people just use them and they throw them in the humidor and whatever. Or some people are skeptical by them, which I still find, and I don't really use those. I use this other thing with a wet paper towel, and I'm like, no, you should use these. And it's
all these years.
I know, and it's amazing. So I'm like, we should really do a show with them and really just explain, like, hey, this is what it is. This is why you should use it. And look, I'll be honest with you. Our job in the media is to be unbiased, right? And I'll tell you, and I'll be honest with you. I've used, obviously, Boveda packs, personally. I've used all the other ones. The Integra, I've used. I think Lotus has one, if I'm not mistaken, more of a foily kind of pack, which wasn't bad.
Yeah, I think so.
And then there's another one, which has no liquid in it. It's just there's like plastic in it. I don't remember what it's called.
Are you thinking of Humi Smart?
Possibly.
Yeah. That one has a plant fiber in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a white pack with blue and green logoing or lettering. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I've used all of them, and I have to say, and this is just the truth, as if I was reviewing a product, right? I mean, none of them come close to Boveda for me. And performance-wise, the Integra, I would say, is probably a close second. They work well enough. They have that, and Nate, I'm sure you're familiar with, they have that that little card that they want you to put in the humidor too that changes color when the pack is dried out. And they work. I'll be honest, they work. But for me, I kind of like the classic Boveda pack when I can go in there and, like you said, I start to feel like it kind of crispy. I know it's trash. I don't have to look at the card and be like, is this accurate, or like is this turning color, or is it just me? I like to be able to grab my pack and be like, no, this is done, and get another one. I don't know. It's just for me, they work the best, and that's what it's always worked for my cigars. And like you said, they put them in humidors with in terms of value, the stuff that's in there. And I have a lot of cigars, to say the least. So for me, I want to make sure that they're well taken care of, and Boveda has always performed the best. So just to wrap that back up, I'm glad we were be able to have you on the show and really talk about these products, because I do think that they're amazing, and I think that they work really well and they're worth it. So thank you for coming on and talking about them.
I've been exclusively using Boveda for 4 years, and I've never had a single mold issue ever, or a single dry cigar issue.
Yep.
So
I'll say this, if I ever had a dry cigar issue, it was just from inattentiveness of swapping packs out. That was on me. It wasn't the packs.
Yeah. And I've been a cigar smoker. I'm 49, and I had my first premium cigar at 18. And I've been using Boveda packs since they were humidipacks. So I've had them in my cases for a long, long time. And they've always worked consistently without any mess or fuss. And, you just look at the list of producers that trust their cigars with Boveda. Fuente being, really Fuente, another one of our guests had mentioned, Roma Craft, as far as one of the larger boutique brands, package all their cigars with Boveda.
La Flor Dominicana.
La Flor Dominicana. There are a long list. The Sejas family, they use Boveda. Hochi Blanco at Tabacalera Palma, they use Boveda. The list is very long. And, our products have worked consistently in very expensive cigars. Fuente puts out some really exceptional cigars year after year after year. And, people just have no issues with it. And it's something you can trust. And we'd like to think we're the industry leader in two-way humidity control. So, for me, it's just a pleasure to work for such a cool company and to be able to sell a product that I know works so consistently well. It's just, that's kind of a rare thing. And, there's always going to be competition in any industry. You walk into any humidor and there's thousands of cigars in that humidor. You smoke what you like, use what you like. I always tell people, try a competitor and, do your own side-by-side test. Drop a couple calibrated hygrometers in each container and see, how long they work, see which one holds more consistently. And I think in really every case, Boveda is going to come out the winner.
Yeah, I mean, it has to. It means something, I'm sure, to you guys as a company, when you have, you open a box of Opus X, you open a box of Andalusian Bull, some really premium, highly sought after cigars, and the first thing you see is one of those packs in there. I mean, to me, that's a big deal.
Yep. Yeah, we think so too. And it's, those are relationships that we value immensely, and we never take for granted, because, those are the relationships that, keep us on the map, that, keep us able to continue producing, packs that work so consistently and so efficiently.
Absolutely. Guys, if you haven't already, go to your local retail tobacconist, or you can find them online. Can they buy directly from you?
Yes, bovedainc.com.
Yeah, head over to bovedainc.com, as well as Amazon. I know usually has them in stock as well. You can find them. They're not too hard to find, but go and check them out today. If you haven't given your humidor the Boveda try, I highly recommend you try it out today. I think you won't be disappointed. Nate, thank you for being on the show. It was a great time. It's always great to see you, and I get to see you in 5-6 weeks at the trade show.
Something like that.
So
yeah,
that's exciting. I get to see you again pretty soon and hang out. So it'll be a great time for sure. But I just want to say once again, thank you for being here on the show with us, and thank you to everyone who was here watching us, and for all those who like and subscribe. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and everywhere you get your podcasts today. Before we wrap up, Mitchell, anything you wanted to add?
That's everything. Enjoy your evening, everybody.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for watching. We will be back next week. Take care.